Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Unbelievers, a Thomas Covenant podcast. I'm Cams, your host, the Unbeliever, and I'm joined as always by...
Barge, the Unbeliever.
There we go, two unbelievers discussing chapter 14 of Lord Fowl's Bane, the Council of Lords. How are you doing today, Barge?
I'm alright, so, finally he gets there, huh? The Council of Lords.
Aye.
Let's see what happens. I mean, it's quite dramatic in a way.
Yeah.
So where were we then, just before we got here?
I think he's just gone to his room.
Yeah, and thrown a tantrum, huh? And chucked the tapestry out of the window.
He did.
That's the tapestry of Beric Harfan because he was pissed off. Yeah, well, anyway, he wakes up the next morning and he's a bit nervous, huh? He even touches his ring, the white gold, to steady himself. That's quite interesting.
Yeah, I get the feeling that that's a reminder of Joan in some way. That's how he takes comfort. Although, Joan's divorced him, so why would that be a comfort? Yeah,
I don't know how he still feels. I imagine he still hurts inside about the whole thing, though, huh? So it may well be that. It may well be that.
Yeah.
But then, perhaps, I don't know. Yeah, that's true. I mean, why would he touch that for comfort? Is it because it's something that's hidden, so it's secure?
Something from the real world, perhaps?
Yeah, good point. Good point.
Mm.
So anyway, he gets guided by Banner, the blood guard, to the council chamber of the Lords. And they enter.
Into the close, which has a table that's shaped like a C. And it's quite an incredible space, isn't it?
Yeah, and there are not many other people there. Big round stone tables. And there are like lords at each table and they seem quite far away from each other.
Was it like 5 lords? Is that all there is?
That's all there is, 5 lords. For the time being. And they all appear really old and like almost on the brink of death, as kind of described over here, like.
Yeah. So we've got High Lord Prothol, son of Dwilliam. He's the chief. And we've got Variol and Tamarantha. I think Variol is a past High Lord. And he's the father of Lord Moram, so I think Lord Moram is probably one of the younger. He and Osondria are the 2 younger lords. And then we've got the Heart Thralls are in presence as well. The Stone Heart Thrall and the Wood Heart Thrall. Birinir and Torm. And that's the Council of Lords. So yeah, they don't call Covenant first. Saltheart Foamfollower is also there. And he gets called first to speak to the Lords. And he seems really comfortable, doesn't he?
He certainly kind of goes on and on. He's got a very important message and some interesting detail. But I did have the thought that, like, why isn't Thomas Covenant speaking first? Surely his message is of great importance. But then I guess I understand the relationship between the giants and Ravelstone is a really, really strong one and powerful one, and that's all expressed as well. But yeah, so Foamfollower kind of stands up and starts speaking and tries to make it short.
Yeah, it's not easy for a giant, is it?
No.
So, I mean, some of his history we know. We learned about the story of the Unhomed in an earlier chapter. And this visit to the Lords kind of follows on from that. So his message is that the Lords have found, the giants have found an island. And they want to use that island as a base from which to continue their search for their homeland.
Right, and I mean, the importance of this island is that it's kind of like they recognize it, because, what does it say? They came upon an isle that borders the ancient oceans on which we once roamed. So basically, that's going to be the base, and then the next expedition will set off from there, and it's almost, they're somewhere on the peripheries of the areas that they've been searching for 3,000 years. So it's quite an important kind of development, it seems.
Yeah, so he's come to call upon the Lords to make good on High Lord Damelon's promise of a gift to the giants. And he comes to remind them of that and to call on them for the gift. So the Lords call upon Birinir, who's one of the Lilianral, the wood lower people, and asks if he remembers the...
That's
and he's like, I remember. Nothing wrong with my memory. It comes to pass that the gift that has been promised is some of the magic wood called Gildenload, which the giants want to use to make keels and rudders for their ships to allow them to continue on their search for their homeland.
It's the same wood that made the rudder of Foam Follow's ship, right? So it was able to move without propulsion. Yeah, right.
Yeah. I think it moved through the power of song, didn't it?
Yeah, right, with something to do with his energy, that's right.
Yeah.
So then this gift is then promised, and the council are kind of, they say, yeah, but it's going to take 40 years, I'm afraid. And Foam Follow laughs because, after all, they've waited 3,000 years, and what's 40 years like?
Exactly, yeah. He probably thinks that's quite quick.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, less than the longest story ever told, maybe, in Giantland.
So, yeah, in this part, Lord Asondria seems very happy with this. Actually, no, her happiness comes after the next piece of news that Saltheart Foam Follower has to share with the council, which is that 3 baby giants have been born.
Right.
And we learned earlier that giants don't have babies very often, so this is really big news for the giants. And he broke into a chant full of the brave crash of breakers and the tang of salt. 3 sons. So that's when Lord Asondria gets damp eyes. She's really happy with this news. But then when told that it's going to take 40 years for the ships, how does Covenant react to that?
Well, that's the thing. He doesn't think they have 40 years because he knows what he has to say to them. And well, technically, I guess they do, because it could be 7 times 7 years, right? But
that's right.
Nonetheless, so they turn to him after Covenant's thinking, well, you don't have enough time for all that. They turn their attention to him.
Yeah, and Covenant's quite stiff in front of the Lords. Understandably. He's his typical self, I suppose. He's not happy to be there, and he doesn't respond to them very well at all, right up until he gives them the message.
Yeah, they express their kind of, in a sense, I don't know, the reasons for their suspicions, maybe, or lack of trusting, I suspect. Yeah.
Yeah, well, first of all, he chucked the tapestry out the window, so Asondria pulls him up for that. Right,
yeah, that's
at the beginning.
Right. Yeah.
He says, why did you do that? He said, it offended me. She's like, offended? Her voice quivered with disbelief and indignation. And then the High Lord admonishes her, he's a stranger. Give him peace. So that contrasts, so Sondria's reaction contrasts with how she reacted to the giant. So she's very kind and she loves the giant, but with Covenant she's all belligerence and suspicion, much more so than the other lords.
Yeah, and certainly as we shall see later on.
So yeah, it's quite quickly Covenant gets to his message, and he recites it verbatim, and the lords are absolutely, I don't know what the word is for it.
Well, they're shaken to the core.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine? They must have believed that Lord Fowl had gone. That's how it seems to me. And they're spending their time studying the lore. It's all academic stuff.
Yeah, right, okay.
They're old.
Yeah.
The council is, 5 lords and that's it. It's like, they're not prepared for
anything.
No, they're not.
Right, and all they've learnt about is how little they know.
Yeah.
And we are learning that they're really exposed and vulnerable.
Yeah.
Right, so they basically convene almost like telepathically, huh? And then they basically ask him to tell them everything that has happened to him.
Yeah, this is a good reaction here. This explains quite well how they feel about it. Foam Follower grabs hold of his stone chair. His shoulders quivered and suddenly the chair snapped. So this is Foam Follower, who we've come to know as a jovial, amiable, big-hearted sense of humour kind of guy. And even he's freaked out by this news.
Oh, yeah, right, the message that TC passes on, that's right, yeah.
But then he calls on Covenant after he delivers his message to laugh. And Covenant can't laugh. He says, I can't do it. You laugh for me. And so he does. Foam Follower lifted his head and made a strangled, garish noise in his throat. The terrible exertion appalled Covenant. But he laughed. Yeah, he's using humour and the power of laughter to deal with the shock.
And who knows, it might actually be a very effective technique of dealing with stuff like that.
Yeah, I think so. I love Saltheart, Foam Follower. So, yeah, this is when the questioning begins, and the lords they're like, how have you got this message? What happened? Tell us everything. And Covenant struggles. He holds some stuff back. He doesn't explain what happened with Lena. So it does mention the word falsehood here in his delivery, his explanations, which I found interesting. Yeah,
he's certainly being cagey, and I'd wondered if he was going to be honest, and he wasn't, and the lords spot that.
Yeah, they do, and it's interesting because the things that Covenant does tell them are not lies. It's all stuff that happened, about the celebration of spring and the wraiths and Baradakis. It's just that he's holding stuff back, and the lords really get a sense of that. So the lords are obviously very astute, and they can maybe see into... Oh no, actually they can't see into Covenant, can they?
Oh no, they say later on, I can't read you.
Yeah. And they're used to being able to read people. So on some level they must be able to read him because they know that he's holding something back. But they can't see into his heart in the same way that they can with other inhabitants of the land.
But they are astute and they can use good deductive skills, like one of the lords basically says that we must act. Of course I trust him. He has a Hildebrand staff, does he not? What Hildebrand would give him his staff without sure reason? And look at it, one end blackened. He has fought with it at the celebration, if I do not mistake.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's some circumstantial stuff that they can pick up and basically, use to assess the situation.
Yeah, so it gives some veracity to his story, the fact that he's got that staff, and then he explains that he passed his bloody test of truth. And this is where he does lie, doesn't he?
Yeah, this is a sticking point, because they want to know why he was tested and why they desired to test him and why Atiaran wasn't tested at the same time.
And Foam Follower jumps in on his behalf and says, well, why would they test Atiaran Trailmate of Mythal Stone down? She would not require any test of truth to demonstrate her fidelity. But the Lords are not wearing it. They're like, nope, we need more from you, Covenant.
It is clear that you have spoken falsehood. So tell us. But he says no. They ask, why do you refuse? And that's when he comes up with something. I wasn't quite sure, what's he on about? He says, I'm trying to get out of telling you an even bigger lie. If you keep pushing me, we'll all suffer. So what's this bigger lie that he's talking about?
Is it to do with the rape scene? I don't see why that would be relevant.
Well, why would that be a bigger lie?
No,
I mean, that this is all a dream?
Yeah. Leprosy and impotence. But then he does tell them that later. And he tells them it's a dream as well, doesn't he?
They get it out of him.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that, Barge. I really don't know what it's referring to there.
Yeah, I just wondered. Anyway, so basically he doesn't tell them.
No, he refuses. He refuses, and then the Lords decide that they need to convene together on their own. They have a break, and this is where Covenant goes out with Banner, and they have a very interesting discussion.
Yeah, so Banner, the Blood God, gives a bit of Blood God history. And it's a little bit of his own personal history too.
Yeah, and there's a lot of large time spans mentioned here. So Banner, the Blood Guard was formed 2,000 years ago when Kevin was High Lord. And we already know that Kevin ruled for 1,000 years. So these are big chunks of time for people to be around.
And Banner has been around all that time.
Yeah.
Because he joined at the very start. And his wife has been dead all that time too.
Yeah.
Thomas Covenant finds out. And this is where, he kind of gets onto a little bit of a personal thing with him, just trying to understand a bit more about Banner, like why is he doing this? And Banner responds basically by saying, I will not be corrupted.
Yeah. That's an interesting word on his part, because that's what the name that they use for Lord Fowl, isn't it? Corruption. So does the Bloodguard have this vow that they took back in Lord Kevin's time? And it mentions a bit about the desecration when they were basically sent away by Lord Kevin. So Lord Kevin saved them from the desecration.
Sounds like.
Yeah. We know that the giants escaped the desecration, and they were the ones who had the first ward of Kevin's lore to look after. But the Bloodguard, what does immortality signify? We are the Bloodguard. We know only life or death, the vow or corruption. So any bending from the vow would be seen as corruption.
Right.
So they're very rigid, implacable.
But this is where Thomas Covenant manages to find a way through this exterior and this impassive appearance into an area of doubt. Because he asks him about his wife, and he says, Well, look, your wife died 2,000 years ago. If she was still alive today and you went back to see her, would you refuse the vow, or would you not, basically? And he said, I would. So what does he say exactly? So could you bear it? So if your wife was still alive, would you go to visit her and then come back here? Could you? He faltered. Could you bear it? The blood god met his imploring gaze squarely, but his thoughts seemed to pass like shadows between his countenance before he said softly, "No." Okay, it doesn't actually say that he might break his vow, but it kind of
I don't think
implies it, yeah. No, you don't think he would?
No, he says, "We have sworn the vow is life, corruption is death." And then, it's like the blood guard replies to Covenant, "You cannot corrupt us." Corrupt you? I don't want to corrupt you. So
so anyway, they have an interesting bit of interaction, and then Thomas Covenant is called back to the Lords.
Yeah, and they tear right into him with questions, and they discuss quite a few things that we didn't know before about Drool Rockworm and the Staff of Law. So they question Covenant as to whether it was actually the Staff of Law, and he says, it looks like one of yours with metal heels. And then it explains that Lord Fowl must have called upon Drool to bring Covenant into the land, which he did with the Staff of Law.
Because only the Staff of Law has such might.
Yeah. And it was Drool who attempted to turn Covenant away from his path in Andalane, not Lord Fowl. And we learned in the message that Covenant delivered that if the Lords are not able to get hold of the Staff of Law, they have 10 seasons left before Lord Fowl will have dominion. And then they say that Drool would become High Lord within 2 years if they're not able to get the Staff of Law.
And the destruction would come 6 times 7 years earlier. So they basically only have a total of 7 years instead of 49.
Yeah. No, I think it was if the message is not delivered, then Drool would become High Lord within 2 years. But now the message has been delivered, so that's been thwarted. But that explains why Drool was attempting to turn Covenant away with the Wraiths and Andalane and with the Raver. So Drool wanted to thwart Covenant's progress, whereas Lord Fowl wanted the message to be delivered. So it seems that the two of them are at loggerheads, Drool and Fowl. They're not working together.
At this level anyway. Or they've got some kind of pact.
Well, we know that the pact is that Lord Fowl has allowed Drool to keep the Staff of Law. I suppose he could have just taken it off him, couldn't he? But he's allowed him to keep it, and so now Drool is fighting for his own sake to get to the Council of Lords and to stop Covenant from delivering the message, because then Drool will be able to sit on the high throne. And I think Lord Fowl's he doesn't care whether Drool gets there or not.
Alright, because maybe that isn't the end game, because he says, at the end you will fear me.
Groveler. So yeah, I really enjoyed that bit of information there, because back in the Andalane section I was curious why Lord Fowl would be trying to stop Covenant from reaching Revelstone. But it seems that he wasn't trying to prevent him. It was Drool.
That makes sense. But I mean, yeah, so...
Well, that means that Drool has the Urviles at his command. The Wedge.
Or at least, who are in cahoots with him. But would he really try and hold Thomas Covenant up for 2 years?
Well, just to prevent him from delivering his message, I suppose.
Yeah, freak him out with trauma so he loses his memory. I mean, strong memory though, to be able to deliver it all word for word.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, having heard it once when he's in that freaked out state anyway.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I'll just, maybe he's been reciting it over and over in his mind on the journey. I don't know.
Yeah. Or else, I mean, after all, he does have a seemingly independent voice that operates within his subjective universe, so, you know, that could be feeding him the script as well.
Are you talking about, like, dream-wise?
Well, there's some voice when he was in a couple of states, maybe, you know, there were voices coming in.
There were, yeah, in the boat when he drank the diamond draft and then he dreamed about the ambulance, didn't he? And he was hearing voices.
There, certainly, and maybe somewhere else too.
So, yeah, there are voices, yeah. So, and then he mentions the ravers here. And Prothol says to him, yeah, there's evidence of the truth here because few living know that the ravers were at one time called Herem, Sheol and Jahannam. So Covenant is telling the truth here. They've got that.
And they also, they say you are our sole guide to the despiser's true intent.
Yeah, but then they give him a bunch of questions which are totally justified. You know, she says, then there are matters on which you have refused to speak. So why did the higher brand of soaring wood Helven test you? He hasn't replied to that satisfactorily. How was the testing done? Who have you battled with the staff? What instinct turned Atiar and Trailmate against you? You fear to reply because then we will see the despiser's handiwork. And they demand of him a token to prove that what he's saying is the truth. And I'm wondering, what would that look like? Why would they think he has a token? I mean, we know that he does. But in the Lord's minds, what are they expecting from him?
Yeah, and I mean, were they talking about specifically a material token, or could it be something else too? I don't know. Yeah, I mean, they've got some points on which to kind of base some trust on him, because some of the stuff that he's saying is true, but they have these doubts. Somehow they figured out that Atiaran turned against him. They say later on, actually, that is covered. It's they reason because nobody would travel so far, get so close to Ravelstone, and turn back.
Yeah.
So give us proof that we should trust you, because, like, you know, you're borderline bro, but like, what? You must choose between the land and the land's despiser.
Oh yeah, and this is where he says, this is what he wants you to do.
I mean, there's a lot of speculative chess going on now.
Yeah, there really is. I mean, I'm curious why the Lord's, I mean, obviously the message is true. They've learned from him about Jahannam and about, you know, other things that he said. So even if he is holding something back, do they not have enough? Why do they need more? Or do they doubt him?
I mean, maybe so he's held back, right? He's held back the information, he's held back everything, so give us something voluntarily then. If you're not giving us what we're asking for, give us something voluntarily. Maybe.
Yeah.
But they also demand. It's not just ask for a token, they actually demand a token.
That's the word.
And they use the word demand.
Yeah, Prothol, the High Lord, actually uses that word. And this is a great scene, actually, when Covenant looks into the gravelling and we go through some of the thoughts. He remembers some of the thoughts from the past. 2,000 years, life or death, we do not know. All the stuff that's in italics. And then finally, Joan. He sees his wife's face in the Firestones, and that's when he decides he's going to share with them the ring.
So then the final thought was one sick body more important than everything? And then that's when he kind of rips open his shirt, like, you know, dramatic style, and that changes everything.
It's quite a cinematic scene, you can imagine it, and he puts the ring on and he holds up his fist and says, I can't use it, I'm a leper. And everything changes. This is the token that the Lords were waiting for, and boy did they get it.
All apart from Osandria. She alone amongst the Lords appeared to realise that even this token did not suffice. But everyone else is like over the moon. They're really chuffed. They make him an Earl Lord on the spot.
Yep. They give him his badge. He's a member of the council now. He can sit and vote. All that. They saluted Covenant as if they wished to both invoke and ward against him. And then together they began to sing. We get this song here which has got parts in it we've heard before about the paradox of the white gold and how he's going to save or damn the land because he's mad and sane, cold and passionate, lost and found.
Yeah, and how the white gold is not of the land and therefore not subject to the laws of the land.
Yeah. The laws
and basically that wild magic has no law.
Yeah, and we get a mention of the land's creator. So we've got that creator myth going on. And it mentions the arch of life that spans and masters time. So yeah, it's an important song for the Lords of the Land, and I suppose parts of it are repeated throughout the land, because where else did we hear some of it? Stone Down. So it's a well-known song.
Yeah. So they're all kind of, it seems almost excited in a way, but TC kind of freaks out again. Yeah. Because again he's feeling that all this responsibility is kind of being thrust upon him.
Yeah, and I guess that's why he was so hesitant to share it with them, because he must have known what the result was going to be. That he's Beric, half-hand, the second coming and all that. He's like, no, I can't use this thing, I'm a leper, I'm impotent, I don't have any power.
But the Lords are having none of it, and they continue to honour him, and he's even told that your semblance to Beric half-hand is not gratuitous. And that the prophecies are clear about your importance. So, he says, well, I don't know how to use this ring, but the Lords say, well, we don't know how to use it either. We don't know how to use wild magic.
Oh yeah, that's when they say that even if they had all 7 wards, they probably still wouldn't know. But as it is, they don't even have all of the first ward yet.
Yeah, and then that's where TC says, listen, you guys freak me out. You people terrify me, man.
Aye, that's why Phil chose me for this, because I can't.
Exactly, because I'm going to fail, huh?
Yeah, he says those terms contradict yours. He's talking about how in his world we have to live on the world's terms. And the High Lord asks him, what are its terms? And he said that your world is a dream.
Yeah.
That doesn't go down well.
Yeah, totally. Especially with Osandria, who kind of says, do you mean that you're asleep? And that's when he says, yep, that's it. And so it's basically discovered that Thomas Covenant thinks he is dreaming and that all of this is not real.
So now they finally get to learn why he's called the Unbeliever. He's been introduced as the Unbeliever, but they didn't know what he didn't believe in till now.
Yeah.
It's got me thinking, I've written down here, beside that paragraph where he's discussing how he doesn't know how to use the power, and he says that you guys terrify me. The idea of leprosy as being a corruption of a whole body. It's like it's taken part of his integrity away as a whole person. And Banner, when he was talking about bending from the vow, even just slightly, he saw that as corruption. And it gives me a sense of like harmony and creation and the world as being a thing of beauty until you take part of it away, and then it becomes corrupt, and then that corruption can start to fester and grow. That's what I thought about when I read that chapter. And that's why Lord Fowl has chosen Covenant, because he himself has corruption in his body, which makes him impotent and unable to use the only tool that could save the land. And that's where this paradox comes from, that he will either save or damn the land, because he's mad and sane. He's both things at the same time.
Right.
What do you think about that?
Well, yeah, nicely stated.
And I think Covenant understands this. That's why he's so terrified that these lords, they're not listening to him. He's saying to them, look, I'm not who you think I am. I can't help you. And he can say that till he's blue in the face. They're not going to believe him. They're just going to see what they want to see, is this semblance of Beric Halfhand with the white gold that's prophesied in the song and everything. How can they believe otherwise? They're just not going to listen to him, and he can't. There's nothing he can do to make them understand him. And that must be frustrating as hell.
Right. Yeah. And that's exactly where he is. He pretty much expresses that Fowl is mocking him, because I guess pretty much in this dream he's getting better, but that's impossible for a leper.
Aye.
And so it's that's just craziness. That's madness, insanity.
Yeah, so it's a conflict between him and the lords.
Yeah.
That seems unresolvable.
Yeah. I don't want to lose my mind because some perfectly decent character in a dream needs something from me that I can't produce.
Yeah.
You're nice guys, but you're dream characters, and this is driving me crazy.
Yeah. It's strong stuff.
And then the Lord say, I fear the time is coming when you will be the land's last hope.
They're not listening. No wonder he threw the tapestry out the window.
Yeah. And in response to that, Covenant says that's exactly what Fowl wants you to think.
Yeah. It's like Covenant. Fowl can quite happily send in the tool of his own destruction because he knows that it can never be used. So he's like, ha ha, lords, look what I can do. I'm sending in something that you could use to destroy me. Except you can't. Ha ha. That's what he means. Fowl's mocking you.
Mm.
But yeah.
Right. That's of course what we're thinking at the moment. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's good writing. They're kind of building up. The author's building it up now. We're over halfway through. There's a sense of hopelessness, isn't there? But we know that something's about to happen. That they can't hang about now that they've got all this news.
Well, that's exactly what happens. They're all excited and energized now, and they're all kind of action stationed up. There is much work to be done, Prothol says.
Yeah.
So
I guess Covenant won't be able to do anything but go along with them. You can't just say no. Well, I suppose he could. Then what would they do?
But then what would he do?
Yeah, what would he do? He's stuck in Revelstone.
Yeah, like, how does he get back? And, maybe one way... does he even want to go back? That's the whole thing. Like, he hasn't even questioned that. Why?
Good question.
Why? What's there for him?
That's a really good question.
Why not let go of that reality? After all, it was so painful. Joan, maybe. But, yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's part of the paradox.
I'd never actually thought of that before. You just kind of get caught up in the story of the land. But does Covenant want to return? Does he want to wake up?
Yeah, and if the whole mission is completed, and then he wakes up, but by that time he's really attached to the land, and he's all healed.
Or if he fails and he gets killed, then what? If he gets killed in the land?
Then does he wake up back in like the other place?
Yeah.
But for now he's a lord. He's our lord.
He's our lord. I think that's like super lord.
Yeah. And I mean, some of his dirty secrets are out, but actually they got him honoured.
And he still didn't reveal the rape.
Right. And he still doesn't feel he can do it. I mean, even though, yeah.
Well, Foam Follower doesn't even know about that, so the only people who know are Covenant and Lena and Atiaran and Treok.
And I would imagine maybe the rest of, what's the village where they are?
Mithelstone Down.
Mithelstone Down.
Well, so much for the test of truth then, at Soaring Woodhelven. That didn't reveal it either. Remember when they chat? Well, that was basically just threw the stick at him and he dropped it. So, yeah. So he's carrying that around with him. And will it come out? Who knows?
Yeah, well, I imagine it must tie in somehow. It doesn't... I don't imagine it appears so early on, so shockingly in the story, just to fizzle out into nothing.
No, it's a bit like Chekhov's gun, isn't it?
Oh yeah? What happens with that?
That's that old saying that Chekhov would say that if there's a gun in a story, then the gun's going to be used at some point.
I see.
So, my wife and I always refer to that as Chekhov's gun whenever we're watching any film or TV show and something gets telegraphed. We're like, yeah, it's Chekhov's gun.
Okay.
Or we'll call it Chekhov's whatever the thing is in the thing that we're watching.
Yeah, right, okay. So, what is this?
Chekhov's rape scene.
Right.
So there we go. Council of Lords. What's the title of the next chapter? The Great Challenge. And I wonder what that's going to be. Could be anything. It's quite a short one, actually. What are we going for?
Stick with us and find out, listeners?
Exactly, yeah. Stick with us and you'll learn.
Well, you've got your own copy, I'm sure, by now, so... yeah, right.
Or you can read ahead. That's perfectly permissible. We don't mind. Read ahead, but don't spoil anything in the comments for this episode. Keep any comments relevant to this chapter, if you can. So, thank you for listening. If you want to give us feedback, we'd love to hear from you. Just head on over to theunbelievers.co. You'll find all the links over there. They'll also be in the show notes to this episode as you listen to it, so just scroll down a wee bit. You'll get the links. And if you're on YouTube, same applies. We're over at Cams Campbell Reads YouTube channel. It's going out over there as a podcast, which is basically just a playlist on YouTube. Some people like to listen to podcasts that way, and we are happy to oblige. So, we'll see you again next week for Chapter 15. Thanks, everyone.
Bye for now. See you again.
Bye.